Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive.
Mhm.
We love to really get into the weeds of cybersecurity here, and you guys have been sending over some incredible articles and research about the upcoming election.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's a hot topic.
it is a very hot topic, and it seems like everyone wants to have a little bit of influence.
Hmm.
Maybe not in the way that we want them to, though.
Exactly. And not all from the places that you might think either.
Right, we're talking Russia, we're talking China, we're even talking some homegrown
Oh,
issues.
yeah.
Um, but let's just dive right in, I guess.
Let's do it.
One of the articles that really kind of caught my eye was talking about Russia and these fake videos that they're pushing out,
Yeah.
showing people tearing up Trump ballots. I mean, what is that about?
Well, it's interesting because in the past, we've seen Russia and other foreign actors
Yeah.
really try to go after the election systems directly, trying
Yeah.
to change votes, trying to tamper with the actual infrastructure. But it seems like this time around, they're taking a different approach.
So it's not really about changing votes anymore. It's about just causing chaos.
Yeah, it's about sowing doubt, making people question the validity of the election, regardless of the outcome.
So are they just admitting defeat that they can't actually hack the system? So they're just going to try to mess with people's minds instead?
It's possible. I
Yeah.
mean, it could be a sign that their previous attempts to hack the systems have failed, and they're resorting to these more psychological tactics.
But those videos were debunked pretty quickly, right?
They were, yeah. The FBI was able to debunk them within 24 hours,
Wow.
which is pretty impressive.
So that's got to be a good sign, right? That our defenses are getting better.
It is a good sign. It shows that the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, as they're known, has been studying the playbooks of these foreign actors like Russia, China, Iran, and they're getting much better at anticipating and countering their tactics.
Oh, that is reassuring.
Yeah. Huh.
Um, while we're talking about foreign actors,
Let's talk about China.
let's talk about China
Yeah,
exactly.
that was a fun topic.
They seem to be taking even more of an audacious approach. They were caught hacking into U.S. telecom companies, which is a little unnerving.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a step up in their game.
What are they hoping to gain from that?
Well, instead of just targeting individual phones like they might have done in the past,
Yeah.
they're going after the infrastructure itself.
So they could potentially access all the phones on a carrier?
Potentially, yes.
Wow.
And this isn't just about spying on a few key individuals anymore. This is about mass surveillance on a scale we haven't really seen before.
And I remember reading that some pretty prominent figures were actually caught up in this, like Trump-Harris.
Yeah, a lot of big names were on that list.
So it's not just about, spying on government secrets or military operations anymore. This is about our data, our privacy.
Exactly. Everyone's data is vulnerable.
Even if we're not, high-profile politicians.
Right. It's a reminder that in this digital age, everyone is a potential target.
Well, that's a cheery thought.
Yeah.
But shifting gears a little bit, I also wanted to talk about those incidents in Colorado.
Oh, yeah. First, we had the ballot printing error.
Right, which thankfully turned out to be just human error.
Yeah.
But it really highlights how important safeguards are.
Keeping your systems safe is super important as businesses rely more and more on digital systems, and that's where turnkey cybersecurity can really help.
Yeah, we're here to help small businesses just like yours make sure they're safe and sound in this crazy world of cybersecurity. And we offer a whole suite of services specifically tailored for you. So that's ensuring CMMC compliance and doing penetration testing. We also run vulnerability scans, and we can help you develop a comprehensive risk assessment.
And it doesn't stop there, right?
No, it doesn't.
We handle incident response, should the unfortunate happen, and we guide you through migrations like GCC. We just want to make sure your transitions are smooth and that you're secure.
It's all about peace of mind, right? You focus on what you do best, running your business, and we'll make sure that your digital world is safe and sound. Colorado has procedures in place that require multiple teams to verify and transcribe ballots if there's a problem, and that really prevented a potential disaster.
So it's a good thing they have those systems in place.
It's a great example of defense in depth, having multiple layers of security to catch errors and prevent breaches.
And then there was that incident where the Colorado Secretary of State accidentally published passwords to election equipment online.
Oops.
Yeah. Oops.
That was not a good look.
Yeah, and while it was addressed pretty quickly.
It was, yeah. They took it down as soon as they realized the mistake.
It still makes you wonder.
Makes you wonder about transparency and the potential for even seemingly minor blunders to undermine public trust.
Because people are already kind of on edge about the election.
Exactly, and this kind of thing just feeds into that distrust.
Right. And then to add fuel to the fire, We have those ballot box fires in Washington and Oregon.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, those were strange.
Yeah, while the cause still hasn't been determined.
Right.
It's easy to see how those incidents, especially in close elections, could be used to cast doubt on the legitimacy of the vote.
Absolutely. And with close elections expected this year, these incidents become even more significant.
They play right into the hands of those who are already claiming that the elections are rigged.
Exactly. They fuel the narratives of election deniers, regardless of the truth.
And it's not just about domestic actors either.
Right. Foreign actors can easily exploit these incidents to sow chaos and undermine confidence in democratic processes.
It's like they're sitting back watching this unfold and thinking, yeah, this is working in our favor.
Exactly. They don't even have to do anything themselves sometimes.
It's pretty scary.
It's a reminder that we need to be critical consumers of information, especially in the lead up to the election.
Right. Don't believe everything you see and hear.
Exactly. Do your research, verify your sources, and think critically about the information you're consuming.
Speaking of foreign actors, I was struck by China's reaction to getting caught hacking those telecom companies.
What do they do?
They immediately started complaining about seabed sentinels spying on them.
Oh, wow. Classic misdirection.
Yeah, it's like, come on.
Trying to deflect attention from their own activities.
Right. It's like the kid who gets caught with his hand in the cookie jar and then blames his brother.
Exactly. But it also underscores a crucial point.
Which is,
All countries engage in espionage. It's the nature of the game.
I guess that's true.
What's important is that we understand the implications these seabed sentinels could be collecting all sorts of data ship movements, maybe even unencrypted communications.
So if they can intercept that kind of data, what's to stop them from collecting information on individuals?
Right. It raises some concerns about the potential for mass surveillance.
It paints a pretty unsettling picture of the digital world we live in.
It does. And it highlights the need for us to be more aware of our own digital footprint and take steps to protect our data.
So it's not just about protecting government secrets or critical infrastructure anymore. It's about safeguarding our own privacy and personal information.
Exactly. Everyone's data is valuable, and everyone's data is vulnerable.
Well, that's a sobering thought.
Yep. But it's the reality we live in.
Ooh, so we've talked about Russia. We've talked about China.
Who's next?
Who's next?
Oh, I know who's next.
Iran.
Iran. Exactly.
They're always up to something.
They are always up to something, and they're getting really creative with their tactics.
Yeah, I read that they're using AI psychological warfare, even posing as fake hosting companies.
Yep. They're pulling out all the stuff.
The fake hosting company.
Yeah, that's a new one. How does that even work?
Well, they set up a seemingly legitimate hosting company, attracting unsuspecting customers.
Right.
But behind the scenes, they're using those servers for malicious activities, hiding their tracks among legitimate traffic.
So they're using the very infrastructure of the internet to mask their operations. Exactly. It's a clever way to evade detection and make it harder for security researchers to track them down.
That's pretty unsettling.
It is. It shows how sophisticated and determined they are.
But why go to all that trouble? What are they hoping to achieve?
Well, it's all part of their evolving cyber playbook, and AI plays a crucial role. By using AI, they can automate and personalize their attacks, tailoring propaganda to specific demographics, and spreading it at incredible speed and scale.
So they can basically manipulate public opinion without anyone even realizing it.
Potentially, yes. It's a highly effective way to influence people, sow discord, and achieve their political goals.
It sounds like something out of a science fiction novel.
I know, right? But this is the reality we're facing.
And it makes these attacks much harder to counter.
It does, because it's no longer a simple matter of blocking a website or taking down a server. You're dealing with a highly adaptive, intelligent adversary that can quickly shift tactics and blend in with legitimate activity.
So we need to be constantly evolving our defenses and adapting to new threats.
Absolutely. We can't afford to be complacent.
Right. But before we get too deep into the world of nation-state actors,
Yeah.
I want to bring things a little closer to home.
Let's do it.
I read this story about burglars using Wi-Fi jammers to disable home alarm systems.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic example of the security versus convenience trade-off.
Right. Those cheap wireless systems might be easy to install, but
They're incredibly vulnerable. A
Simple.
simple Wi-Fi jammer can disable the entire system, leaving your home wide open to intruders.
It's a chilling thought, and it makes me wonder how many people are unknowingly putting their homes at risk.
Probably a lot more than we realize.
So what can people do to beef up their home security?
Well, hardwiring your security system is always a good idea.
Okay.
Battery backups are also crucial in case of a power outage.
Right.
And consider redundancy, having a backup communication method like a cellular connection in case your primary internet connection is compromised.
So it's not just about protecting our computers and smartphones anymore, it's about securing our physical spaces as well.
Exactly. Cybersecurity is about protecting everything that's important to us.
And it starts with awareness, understanding the potential vulnerabilities, and taking steps to mitigate those risks.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
And speaking of power, U.S. law enforcement has been pushing back against potential restrictions on data brokers.
Interesting.
They're arguing that they need access to this data for investigations.
Right. They say it's essential for solving crimes and preventing terrorism.
But privacy advocates are concerned about the potential for abuse.
Of course, they argue that this kind of data collection is overly intrusive and can be used for purposes beyond law enforcement.
It raises a crucial question. How do we balance the need for security with the right to privacy?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
It's a debate that will likely continue for years to come.
On the one hand, we want law enforcement to have the tools they need to keep us safe.
Right.
But on the other hand, we don't want to live in a surveillance state where our every move is tracked and monitored.
It's a fine line to walk.
It is, and it's a reminder that technology always has societal implications.
We can't simply focus on the technical aspects of cybersecurity without considering the ethical and legal ramifications as well.
Exactly. Technology is a powerful tool, and it can be used for good or for evil.
Well said.
It's up to us to decide how we want to use it and how we want to shape the digital world we're creating.
And that's a great place to pause for now, I think.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have from election interference to international espionage to the surprising vulnerabilities of our own homes.
It's amazing how interconnected all of these seemingly disparate events are.
It really is the complex web we're weaving.
It is, and I think the key takeaway is that cybersecurity is no longer just a technical issue, it's a societal issue, a political issue, and an ethical issue.
And it's something that we all need to be engaged in.
Absolutely, not just the experts.
Well said. Well, we'll pick up the conversation in the next part of our deep dive,
Sounds good.
where we'll explore some even more mind-boggling developments in this ever-evolving landscape of cybersecurity. Can't wait. It's amazing how quickly things can change in the cyber world.
Oh, tell me about it. 1 minute we're talking about election security, and the next we're hearing about Google getting hit with this massive fine in Russia.
Oh yeah, that undecillion ruble fine.
And decillion, I mean, is that even a real number?
It's a number, but it's basically impossible to pay.
So essentially, they're trying to bankrupt Google.
Pretty much Google, Russia has already filed for bankruptcy, but Russia's trying to get other countries to seize Google's assets too.
Wow, so this all stems from YouTube blocking some Russian state TV channels back in 2020.
Yep. It seems like Russia has a long memory, and they're not afraid to use their power to punish companies that don't toe the line.
It's a little unnerving to think that governments can wield that much power over tech giants.
It's a reminder that the internet, while global, is still subject to national laws and regulations.
And that those laws and regulations can be used to control the flow of information.
Exactly. We're seeing more and more governments trying to censor content and crack down on dissent online.
It's a slippery slope.
It makes you wonder where the line is between legitimate national security concerns and outright suppression of free speech.
Right, and speaking of lines being crossed, did you see that story about Jack Teixeira, the Air National Guard member who leaked classified information on Discord?
Oh yeah, that was a big one.
The Pentagon is seeking a 17-year prison sentence for him.
It's a hefty sentence, but I guess it shows how seriously they're taking these kinds of leaks.
I mean, I understand that leaking classified information is a serious offense,
Oh, absolutely.
but 17 years.
It does seem a bit excessive, especially considering his age.
It makes you wonder if they're trying to make an example out of him.
Possibly they want to deter future leaks and send a message that this kind of behavior won't be tolerated.
But it also raises questions about how we balance the need for national security with the right to free speech.
Right. It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
Well, on a slightly lighter note, I'm constantly amazed by the creativity of cybercriminals.
Oh yeah, they're always coming up with new ways to trick people.
We've talked about Russia's deepfakes and China's telecom hacks, but Iran seems to be upping their game too.
Oh yeah, Iran is definitely a player to watch in the cyber arena.
Those fake hosting companies are a particularly ingenious tactic.
They are. It's a clever way to blend in with legitimate businesses and evade detection.
It makes you realize that you can't just be technically savvy, you have to be street smart too.
Exactly. You have to be aware of the social engineering tactics that these criminals use to trick people.
So what can we do to protect ourselves?
Awareness is key. Stay informed about the latest threats and vulnerabilities.
Right. Knowledge is power.
Exactly. Be cautious about what you share online and who you trust. And most importantly, practice good cyber hygiene.
Good cyber hygiene. I like that. What does that entail?
Well, use strong, unique passwords for all your accounts and enable multi-factor authentication whenever possible. Keep your software up to date to patch vulnerabilities and be wary of suspicious emails or links.
So basically, don't click on anything that looks even remotely fishy.
Pretty much. And consider using a VPN for an added layer of security, especially when using public Wi-Fi.
Those are all good tips. It's a reminder that cybersecurity isn't just about fancy technology. It's about making smart choices and developing good habits.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and taking responsibility for your own security.
And it's not just about protecting ourselves online.
Right. Remember that story about the burglars using Wi-Fi jammers to disable home alarm systems?
Oh, yeah. That was a scary one.
It highlights the importance of securing our physical spaces as well.
So cybersecurity is really about protecting everything that's important to us.
Absolutely. Our data, our privacy, our physical safety, it's all connected.
And speaking of connections, you mentioned earlier that U.S. law enforcement is pushing back against restrictions on data brokers.
Oh, yeah, that's a controversial one.
They argue that they need access to this data to investigate crimes and protect national security.
Which makes sense on the surface.
Right. But privacy advocates are concerned about the potential for abuse.
And rightfully so, this kind of data collection can be very intrusive, and there's always the risk that it could be used for purposes beyond law enforcement.
It's a tough balance to strike.
It is. We want to be safe, but we also want to protect our privacy.
How do we find that balance?
That's the question we need to be asking ourselves as a society. How do we ensure that technology is used responsibly and ethically?
It's a conversation that we need to be having.
Absolutely. We need to be informed, engaged, and willing to speak up for our rights.
Well said. Well, I think this is a good place to transition to the next part of our discussion,
Okay, sounds good.
where we'll delve even deeper into the implications of all of this and explore some potential solutions.
I'm looking forward to it.
You know, it's amazing to me how we started this deep dive focusing on election security.
Right.
And it's really kind of spiraled out to this exploration of global power dynamics,
It really has.
the evolution of cyber threats, and even the security of our own homes.
Yeah, it just shows how interconnected everything is in this digital age, doesn't it?
It really does, and it makes you think about those seabed sentinels that we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah, what about those?
It's easy to just kind of dismiss it as, just another example of international espionage.
Right.
But when you consider the sheer amount of data that those devices could be collecting,
Mm-hmm.
it raises some pretty unsettling questions about the future of privacy and surveillance.
It does because, we tend to think of surveillance in terms of like cameras and microphones, right?
Right.
But what about the data that we don't even realize is being collected?
Yeah. Like, what?
I mean, think about it. Shipping movements, underwater communications, even subtle changes in the ocean environment.
Wow.
All this can be pieced together to create a very detailed picture of our activities.
So it's not just about, what we're doing online. It's about what we're doing offline as well.
Exactly. The lines are blurring.
They are, and it makes you realize that cybersecurity is about so much more than just protecting our devices and networks.
It is.
It's about safeguarding our data, our privacy, and our freedom.
Exactly, because in a world where the lines between the physical and digital are becoming increasingly blurred,
Right.
we need to think about security in a much broader sense.
We do, and that's where I think the role of governments becomes really important.
Oh, absolutely.
We need strong policies and regulations to ensure that technology is being used responsibly and ethically, that our privacy is protected,
Right.
and that we're not, sleepwalking into a surveillance state.
Because it's a very real possibility.
It is, and as we've talked about before, there's always that tension between security and privacy.
Here is.
Law enforcement agencies, they argue that they need access to data to investigate crimes
Right.
and to protect national security. And with the rise of, all these sophisticated cyber attacks,
Right.
it's hard to argue against the need for robust intelligence gathering.
It is. It's a tough one.
It is. How do we strike that balance?
That's the question, isn't it? How do we find that sweet spot where we're both safe and free? I don't think there's an easy answer,
No.
but I think it starts with having these conversations.
Yeah.
Demanding transparency from our governments and holding them accountable for how they use our data.
Absolutely. We can't just sacrifice our privacy in the name of security.
We can't.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the one message that you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the biggest takeaway is that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility.
It's not just about protecting our devices and our data.
Right.
It's about shaping the kind of digital future we want to live in.
Exactly. A future where technology empowers us, not enslaves us.
Right.
A future where we have both security and freedom.
Well said.
It's a future worth fighting for.
It is. Well, thank you for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
It has been, and to our listeners, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay engaged.
Mm.
The future of cybersecurity is in our hands.
Yeah, that's right. We all have a role to play.